let's talk about an extraordinary example of an independent British film success story. Warp Films, the boss is Mark Herbert. Mark, good afternoon, and a round of applause, please, for our guest here. We were hoping that your colleague Shane Meadows is going to be here, but he's not very well, is he?
No, he was going to try and make it on the phone because he's very ill. He's got the squits,
yes.
As he said, yeah. And I got a couple of texts before. I won't read them out, but he's definitely not going to be able to make it. Okay. Unfortunately, he says he's very sorry.
Well, we send him our best for a speedy recovery. But when you got there, you just need to be left alone for a while, as opposed to fulfil media requirements. It's great to have you on the show. Thank you very much, Steve, for coming. In fact, you tweeted this week, me and Shane Meadows getting a spray tan and hair weave for Friday's live radio chat for Octoberfest. How did that work out?
We did well. Great, really. We were just joking about how bald we both were and how much hair you two have got. So we thought let's get a hair weave, and it started from there. And Shane dared us to get a spray tan, but he said you go first. And I've done that with Shane before, and not
you've
spray
done a spray tan.
I didn't know.
Shane before?
Had a dare from Shane, and But so we decided against it.
That's probably wise. It would have been a little bit distressing. So 10 years of Warp Films. Was it in a shed? Was it in your shed that you started Warp Films?
Yeah, well, it wasn't. I mean, it was the guys, Rob and Steve from Warp Records, the great Sheffield, originated from Sheffield record label that started. And then I was producing. I was a location manager, produced Phoenix Nights, the Peter Kay first series. And me and Rob used to, if you like, the back alleys used to back on. And when he was coming up with this mad idea of doing a film company, I would, invariably over late night PlayStation, FIFA nights, would go around and talk to him and help him out. And then tragically, Rob passed away. And it was actually during the wake and at the funeral where Steve, the other person, said they've got this money together and a great idea to sort of like do artist-driven films. And over a course of about 2 bottles of Jack Daniels, I decided to give up the offer that I got to produce something else and give it a go. So we started from the shed and contacted Chris Morris, made the short film My Wrongs, and then did Dead Man's Shoes, which is that's nearly 10 years since we made that.
And when you say the remit was to make artist-driven films, what exactly do you mean by that?
Well, I think one of the things that Warp Records did was, if you like, have relationships with their artists, whether they did a film, an album that sold, got in the top 10, or whether the album that was, very obscure, they would just back the artists over the body of work. And that was the first initial idea, that you would follow that Warp principle. And really it was, and it's a shame Shane's not here, but really that one of the key things from working on Dead Man's Shoes is that Shane had come from, making films where he felt that a lot of the creative control had been taken from him and his process of improvisation had been taken. And I saw some shorts that him and Paddy did. This is 10 years ago. And Shane, I was just like, they were amazing. I only met Shane in February, and in May we were on set on Dead Man's Shoes. And really it was to enable the artist and try and structure. We knew production. I got a team of people with me that are great and who also understood production, and was really just trying to sort of find financiers who would, and famously on Dead Man's Shoes, we actually turned some money down. We could have made it for more than $1 million. It ended up being $700,000 because we wanted to back Shane's vision, and we knew that if somebody wanted to make it a little bit funnier. And so,
because he'd specifically had a bad experience on Once Upon a Time, in which the film he'd started making this movie that had a very particular quirky feel to it, and the people behind it felt that it had a more mainstream appeal, and he wasn't entirely happy with the end product.
Yeah, I obviously didn't know Shane then, but apparently that process wasn't, and so really it was just taking that and saying, okay, well we can, and it was our first feature as Warp, and we wanted to back him all the way, and it was a liberating experience for us both. I know that Paul Bettany before was saying he shot the film Margin Call in 17 days. We shot Dead Man's Shoes in 18 days. And it was just, it still holds, it's such a fond time for me, Paddy, Shane, who were involved in it. We shot it chronologically, we put rules around it, that, we sort of looked at the production process and said, what's the size of our crew? And ultimately we said the size of our crew has to be how many we can fit in a minibus. So we did it that way around. And after being a location manager myself and production managing big films and seeing how a film's a big beast, it's a circus that comes into town, and if you change your mind, to turn that circus takes a day, whereas we wanted the flexibility to sort of work on a scene, and if it wasn't working, we'd move on and work something else out.
And Paddy Considine, another kind of big name in the story, really.
Paddy, yeah. I mean, it was Paddy who kind of sort of introduced me to Shane, because Paddy was in the very first short film that we made, the Chris Morris short film, My Wrongs. So Paddy introduced me to Shane, and then that relationship started. Then, of course, with Paddy, who's a fantastic actor, but recently become a fantastic director.
He came on the show talking.
Yeah, and he's brilliant. We made the short with him, Dog Altogether, and then obviously his BAFTA-winning film Tyrannosaur. Yeah. We're quite an incestuous little bunch of people, really. It's quite a weird, the links are really quite with Richard Ayoade, who's been in, and the Paddy's been in that, and the music, and the crew that we've got, the DOPs. We've actually, as we're charting our 10th anniversary at the moment, we're looking, and there's just these people that are really faithful all the way through, from Chris Morris to Paddy to Shane.
Can you explain how a warp film would happen? Can you explain, maybe with reference to Submarine or something that you've been involved with? Can you explain how you get involved as a producer and how a film would become a warp film?
I think ultimately Submarine's a good example because it was the first book adaptation that we did, and that came again. We've got a fantastic team at Warp. We've got some some of them are here, and we've had people that have become producers that 8 years ago were runners, and so one of the important things is taste. Submarine came in, a guy who was an intern. His friend had written a book. Joe had written his book Submarine, and he gave us the manuscript. We loved it, and at the same time we'd started working with Richard quite closely, Richard Ayoade, on some pop promos, and we just sort of we like to enable filmmakers. We just felt that material and Richard were great. We put them together with Joe. And a lot of it is really down to the relationships. Ultimately, it's about the relationships we have with the directors. So we never try and force the square peg into a round hole scenario. If it's not working, we know very quickly, and we'll move on. And ultimately, it's about finding filmmakers we love, and all the filmmakers that we work with, we love. And it's trying to make them, help them realise their vision, and being honest with them enough to say, we're not going to raise £10 million for this. We might only raise 1.2, but we'll give it a good shot.
And when you look at the list of films, I mean, the list I have in front of me are Dead Man's Shoes, This Is England, Donkey Punch, Hush, The Don Scorsese Four Lines, This Is England, Submarine, Tyrannosaur, Killers. Which are the ones that you're most proud of?
Gosh, this is a really tricky one. Because it's a bit like, you have your favourites for different reasons.
Okay, well, what's your favourite?
Dead Man's Shoes still is a precious one for me because it was the first one. It's the reason it's our 10th anniversary. We've just announced today an event at Magna that we're going to do, and where we're going to get the musicians involved in the original film to reimagine the score and play it live at Magna, the Sheffield, the Steelworks just between Sheffield and Rotherham. So that's on the 17th of November. The tickets are on sale today. So Dead Man's Shoes is always one that I remember fondly. But I love the films that have come along because I'm a producer, and a lot of the times when I was in the shed I was having to produce, but I've got a great team of producers that work with us now. And recently, we did our first Australian film, Snowtown, which I'd been to Australia. We'd selected the project in a workshop that I did with Ryan Johnson, the director of Looper. Me and him did a workshop for 3 days, and the succeeding project was Snowtown. And then I didn't really do anything other than see some casting tapes and watch horrifying rushes at 7 in the morning. In fact, my wife would come in, and at breakfast I'd be like that because I'd just see the kangaroo getting butchered.
We've all been there.
Yes.
Spoiler alert.
But anyway, so Snowtown, because it didn't really have much to do with it, it was shot and made over the other side of the world. And then I sat at Cannes and watched it in front of an audience, of which half of them left. But it was just, I absolutely loved that. And the same with Barbarian. Barbarian recently, I was just
Which is Barbarian Sound Studio.
Yes.
Which is clearly one of the best films of the year, and extraordinary performance by Toby Jones. And I mean, I'd be surprised if it doesn't turn up on several critics' top 10 lists at the end of the year.
Yeah, no, it's just a great and
when we spoke to Toby Jones about that, because he was so keen to come on and talk about it, he spoke about that in the same way that Paul Bettany was talking about his last two projects, like someone who's come alive. Because obviously you'll have to do stuff you don't necessarily think is wonderful. But suddenly,
we do this show, for example.
But here were two actors who've suddenly here's a project that they love every single thing about, and they just want to tell the world about.
And that's great. And I'm a big believer. You find with films, and even sometimes with the TV stuff that we've done, it has its own energy. A film, after a certain amount of time, gains this energy that just everyone starts to believe in it, from the runner to the caterers to the actors. And you sort of know when it's happening, and it's
Can I just
really
say that that's not true of all films? As you know, there are several films on which by the third weekend everybody thinks they're working on the massive stinker.
Yeah, but what I mean by the thing is that with Paul, you know when that energy's there, and you can see it in the eyes of the crew. And there's invariably, every week or every day, there's a problem that I have to sort out with our team of people. There's something that's gone wrong. But when there's that fighting spirit that everyone believes in it, you look back at the production, it's an amazing
When you
memory.
look at that list, because it's such an impressive list, and without naming any names, is there anything on that list that you think it didn't work out?
There's a couple of ones that I think there are a couple on there that I would have loved to have a little bit more money and time to have thrown at it.
But generally, money hasn't been a big stumbling block. I mean, you've made a point of making movies, knowing exactly what the budget is, knowing exactly what it can allow, and bringing them in on time and on budget.
Yeah. I don't think we've ever had anything go over.
Which is extraordinary.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it is. It's amazing, and that's thanks to the team of people that work at Warp. We've got a fantastic spirit and fantastic people who know, and will go that extra mile. Some of the most inventive decisions we make are when we have no money. The opening title sequence of Dead Man's Shoes is Super 8. It's my family that was in my uncle's attic. If we had the money, we'd have probably shot something with bad sides and hair weaves. And we didn't. We found it, and it was much more accurate. So
we have some film students in the audience, I think from Nottingham, maybe Nottingham University. Let's just get a microphone to them. They're all sitting helpfully a couple of rows from the front. Shove a microphone at one of them. Yes. What's your name, sir?
I'm Josh.
Josh, is it Nottingham University?
Yep.
Okay, your course is?
French and Film Studies.
French, well, forget the French bit for the moment, though you would have been quite useful earlier on.
Just asking quickly, Nouvelle Vague or Vague?
Vague.
Thank you.
Well, pardon me for reading out an email in the spirit in which it was intended. You're a film student. What's your ambition?
To somehow get into the film industry, maybe even in the journalism side, who knows?
Okay, so, and next to you?
This is
Yes.
I'm Felix.
And what do you do, Felix?
I'm also quite interested in journalism. I do English and film studies.
English and film studies, yeah. Okay. And the lady off to the right?
I'm Isabel. I'm a law student, but I'm head of the film show on University Radio Nottingham, so that's sort of my angle.
Okay. Does anyone have a question for Mark?
Pretty much everything had been answered already, but
Okay.
I'd like to know what kind of the future holds with the directors like Ben Wheatley and Shane Meadows now.
Well, not necessarily, but we have got ambition to do. I've got 3 kids, and a lot of the films that I've made are not films that
Not
kids.
child-friendly, yes.
No, Snowtown certainly wasn't. We've got a big desire to make a family film, and we've just optioned a book, which I can't reveal too much about at the moment, but a fantastic book.
It's the new Harry Potter.
It's not,
they
no.
can't
It's
mention
kind
it.
of a bit more Indiana Jones meets sort of Sherlock Holmes, and it's a really fantastic book. And so we want to make bigger films. For myself and Shane, who wasn't here, we're obsessed with cycling and the Tour de France. And about 18 months ago, we picked up the rights to the story of Tommy Simpson, the Tour de France cyclist who died in '67. And it's an incredible book that William Fothering did, the Guardian cycling writer. So we're in the process of developing that.
Can I just ask you about that? Because when he died, he was like a rock and roll cyclist.
Yes.
And when he died, his body was full of amphetamines.
It was.
And all of a sudden, you have a book which feels enormously prescient. And with the extraordinary revelations which have come out this week about Lance Armstrong, you must be thinking that the interest in there'll be a lot of interest in the film anyway, but this is a story that people will be turning to and thinking, well, a number of questions. How long has this been going on for in cycling, and what kind of a story are you going to be telling?
Well, what's amazing about the sort of Tommy's story, he was a hero. It was rife then. In fact, it had not been illegal. People were taking amphetamines. I think it was 2 years before that it was passed as a illegal substance. So it was just, for us, it's kind of like Raging Bull story. It's the drive of a man who kind of refuses to take drugs, and then because everyone else is doing it, has to, and it kills him. And it's not. We've looked at it, and it's ultimately we think Tommy killed Tommy, if you like. The drive to win the Tour de France and the drive to win that race was ultimately what killed him, and that's what's quite poetically beautiful about it. And he's a great, like you said, he's one of those heroes that unfortunately not a lot of people know about him, and we think I think it's great territory for I think for Shane especially. Shane feels a real connection to him, working class lad who basically is the David Beckham of the 60s,
Yeah.
He becomes a hero, he goes to France, they get him driving around in a Rolls Royce in Paris, yet is this kind of lived in a mining town not far from here.
What can you tell us about the Stone Roses film? Is that the family? Is that the new Family Kids film that you're talking about? It's that, isn't it? That's what it is.
I was able to actually take my family to a few of the gigs, which was fantastic. Yeah, it was a really odd one. Ian Brown is, again, this is how the weird links. Ian Brown was a massive Shane fan, loves Dead Man's Shoes. We contacted Ian had contacted Shane, and then when we made This Is England, the TV series, 86, Ian Brown and myself played the two shortest policemen in the whole world. And we played this scene and got talking to Ian, and then literally at the end of 88, we were shattered. We just locked the third episode, myself and Shane, and we were going to a film festival in France, and Ian, on the way to the airport, had rang Shane and said, look, keep a secret, hardest secret ever to keep, that they were getting back together, because we were massive fans. And we'd sworn that we were going to not do something back-to-back, because we'd just had a busy 2010. Shane had done 86, writing, directing, editing it, and then 88. And when your favourite band come and say, we're getting back together, Shane, will you document it? There's nobody else, we want more. It was a really hard thing to turn down, so we kind of did it, and we're in the edit at the moment. We've got 352 hours of material to sift through.
DVD extras is
a lot of DVD extras, yeah. So at one point we were trying to get it out for this year, but there's absolutely no chance. So I think it will be sort of the middle of next year. But we're really pleased with so far, and what sets that band apart. What Shane brings to the table is that ability to find that kind of. The characters in it are the fans as much as they are the band. So it was great fun to make.
And then when that's done, obviously the door is open to make the Comsat Angels documentary that hasn't yet been.
Well, it only took you an hour and a half to bring out the Comsat Angels. And 10th anniversary being marked how?
So basically, 10th anniversary, we've got an event at the LFF on Friday where we're showing This Is England, the original film, where the Italian pianist-composer Ludovico Einaudi is going to play the score live on the grand piano at the BFI South Bank. We've then got the big event, which is the sort of celebration event, which is Dead Man's Shoes as the centrepiece, rescored with 12 musicians, including Jar Wobble and Gavin Clark, and an amazing night at Magna where we'll have some films, some new stuff. We're going to have hopefully all the cast, most of the cast that have ever worked on any film that we've worked with will be there. A big celebration of Warp. We want to do it in Sheffield because this is where we're based. And then we're doing a book, which is a sort of book looking back at the last 10 years, which will have 10 of our favourite films in there, sort of a box set and sort of a bit of a history of Warp next year. We've re-released, I brought you both a copy actually, again done in a Sheffield artist who did the graphic novel of Dead Man's Shoes, which is the one for each of you. So we've re-released that. We only did 1,000 copies that sold, so there you go.
There was an informal poll on our Facebook page, and by informal poll I think they mean a very small number of people randomly sampled, and Dead Man's Shoes came out as the audience's favourite.
Yeah. Oh really?
Absolutely, yeah.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just you think because it's your first one, but I've not actually seen it for about 6 years. I've seen bits of it when I've come in and it's been on Film 4 or something like that. But I'm actually really looking forward to seeing what Gavin and these 12 musicians have done.
Yeah, yeah.
And the idea of them playing the music live, that's really exciting for me.
That's a great idea.
I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch it for the first time in 6 years in 17th of November, hopefully with a few people from here.
Mark, we appreciate you joining us. Thank you. Would you again express our sympathies to Shane on his unfortunate predicament?
Yes, I will do.
So like in Harry Potter, the unfortunate event, and Shane and his unfortunate predicament.
Yeah, well, he's getting his spray tan, I think.
People go to the chemist. I'm sorry, Dr. I'm having a bit of an unfortunate predicament. Have you got anything for that?
Mark Herbert, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Mark.